We go.
Mr. Squidward, welcome to the night shift.
And good evening, everybody, and happy Tuesday, and welcome into another live edition of the MI6 Sports Network's late night sports talk show. That, of course, everybody, is the night shift on this December 22nd, 2020, 3 days away from the Christmas holiday and 1 day away from the network's Christmas special to wrap up our coverage before the Christmas holiday. With that, folks, a fill-in guest is aboard the night shift tonight. That's our good buddy and soon-to-be Thursday night talk show host here on the MI6 Sports Network, the one, the only John Allcorn, joining us from deep in the heart of Texas, and yours truly, Callan McClurg, from the home studios here in San Diego. He is filling in tonight for Isaiah Young, who's actually hosting a virtual Christmas party for some of his friends, also via our StreamYard account. But obviously, we are taking over the live portion of the program. And John, good to see you, man. It's nice to have the soon-to-be Tuesday night host welcoming the Thursday night host of the solo programs here, debuting a part of our brand new program lineup in a couple of weeks. But Mr. Allcorn, thanks for dropping in and for filling in tonight for Isaiah. And of course, man, welcome to the night shift. How are we doing, good sir?
Man, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. I know we got topics, and like I say, and I'll continue to say this every time because I know we hear people with different jobs, whatever. I wouldn't be here at midnight my time, talking sports just for some random person. Our show is gonna be really good, but mind you, folks, Casey, always Chris, you may not like always what I have to say. I promise you, but I think you're gonna agree with part of it, at least understand my point. We do have some big guests coming, like I've told Callan, so we'll keep that under wraps. But again, thank you all for tuning in. Let's keep doing our thing, and not here to be ESPN. We're not here to be Fox Sports. We're here to be our own and kick some ...
And again, folks, as a reminder, the night shift, our final Tuesday show for the night shift is here tonight on this Tuesday, as we will, folks, be moving this program exclusively to the weekends. We'll have more about that later in the program towards the end of tonight's program here on this Tuesday. But again, we're thankful to have you folks joining us here on this Tuesday evening. But as a reminder, everyone, we're still chugging along here with the network's 31 Days of Hot Takes Bracket Challenge. Cast your votes tonight for Ryan Schreiner in his NBA draft breakdown, or John Mathis yelling at his television because his beloved Dodgers could not get a base hit with guys in scoring position back in July. That, again, is on Facebook.com/MI6 Sports. We'll have the results of the poll for you later in tonight's program here on this Tuesday night. Now, with that, actually, let's first, I guess, John, before we actually get to the topics in, remind everyone out there what is going to be happening here once we get past our upcoming slate of special programs. As a reminder, folks, Christmas special is on Wednesday at 8 o'clock Pacific time, followed up next week by the 6-hour extravaganza that is the network's New Year's Eve special. But as a reminder, everybody, coming up on January 4th, so in 2 weeks, basically, on January 4th, the first Monday of the new year, we have a revamped and reshuffled program lineup for you, debuting with, again, Wild Sports Talk remaining in its usual Monday and Wednesday time slot, followed up by the Sports Lounge with myself, yours truly, Callan McClurg, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every Tuesday night. Again, we'll have guests from the network and, again, guests from away from the network joining the show, but it'll be my solo endeavor here on the network every Tuesday. Also, John will have his program every Thursday night at 9:30 Pacific time, and No BS will stay in its usual Friday time slot, with Fan Response and the night shift becoming a doubleheader on Saturdays. And again, the night shift becomes a Saturday and Sunday only program starting on January 4th. So we'll have more about those updates for you as time does move on. But again, we once more thank you for, again, joining us here on this Tuesday evening. And again, it's Callan McClurg and John Allcorn for at least the next hour here on the program. With that, John, believe it or not, man, it is opening night of the NBA on this Tuesday as as 2 games kicked off the season schedule. First up, man, is the Nets and Warriors from Barclays Center in Brooklyn. The Nets win the first game of the season over Golden State, 125-99. Brooklyn over Golden State. Kevin Durant, his first game back in a long, long time for KD after, of course, dealing with a lot of injury problems over the past year or so. 22 points in 25 minutes for Durant, while Kyrie Irving, 26 points and 4 for 7 from beyond the arc for Brooklyn, while Steph Curry, 20 points, 10 assists, the opening night double-double for Steph. But sadly, the Warriors still without Klay Thompson, who, as we have already talked about, John, is done for the year due to a ripped Achilles suffered on draft night just about a month or so ago. And I think, John, that a lot of people have been really looking very hard at this Brooklyn Nets ball club because of the star power there with both Irving and Durant, but also a lot of the off-the-court nonsense with Kyrie Irving burning the stage before that preseason game with the Celtics, him and Kevin Durant kind of throwing first-time head coach Steve Nash under the bus with some of their remarks over the offseason. But at least, though, John, for one game, it looks promising. But again, though, one game a season does not make, as we'll have more about that in the other game that was on the schedule on Tuesday. But I think, though, John, great start for Brooklyn. For Golden State, though, man, another year, it looks like, of growing pains, though, of Steph Curry being that lone guy with the offense on his shoulders. Kelly Oubre Jr. Did show some flashes. James Weiss making his NBA debut as well on Tuesday. But, John, more so, where do you start, though, with this ball game? As as mentioned, the Nets win the game very handily over Golden State. This game was pretty much over at halftime. But, again, 125-99 Brooklyn over Golden State. John, where do you start, though, with, again, game one of the season featuring both of these ball clubs?
I hate to break it to Brooklyn Nets fans. Your season's over. And I know they say they won the game, they played great. I wouldn't say this is more negative on Golden State than it is, you could say, with the Brooklyn Nets. You say the Brooklyn Nets won. But we had in the past what you call the Splash Brothers. What we see in the NBA is what we call not a franchise. We don't see a franchise anymore. We see the quick dynasty that lasts 4 to 5 years. And then we see injuries upon us. I believe when Steph Curry you saw Steph Curry getting hot, that's because Klay Thompson was shooting well and Draymond Green was getting it done. They just don't have that anymore. And I see maybe at best they're a 7th or 8th seed. But Brooklyn, when you make comments about your coach before the season starts, yes, you may get hot early on, but I truly believe, and I hope I'm wrong. But of course, I said I'm done with Kyrie. I'm not a fan of him no more. I think those personalities and how it was before the season is going to negatively impact him later in the season. This is not a thing you can flip the switch. You just forget or it didn't happen. I give the Nets full credit. KD is back. I want him to be back. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because he came out at UT, but I'm a fan of him and what he's done. Now, I know in the past, Golden State, that's not the point. KD's the number one guy for the Nets. Kyrie, we know, can't lead a team on his own. Couldn't do it in Boston the first year. He had a bunch of rookies. Take LeBron to the third round to Game 7. It would be interesting later on because we would see if Kyrie, despite the talent and some of his toddler mannerisms, he can't completely stay healthy. So that's going to be a key later on the season. KD doing his thing. KD staying fully healthy. That's going to be a handicap later in the season. Despite KD doing his thing, can Kyrie Irving keep the momentum going? Can Kyrie stay healthy? And the curious thing is now, who's really their third option for the Brooklyn Nets? I know they got a good bench, but the fact of the matter is you could have a great starting 3 or starting 4 or starting 5. But if you don't have that strong depth at the bench, it's going to affect you later in the season and, of course, in the playoffs. So I just don't see moving forward. This is positive. They have a lot to take away. But we're going to see from the Nets is we're going to see more improvement from them when they lose in terms of how are they going to handle that situation? How are those clashing personalities going to come together after a loss with the coach? How is Steve Nash going to handle it? Because clearly they don't want him there. They can say, "Dot you. We don't want you here." So especially when they lose, how are those personalities going to clash together? I give the Nets full credit. Kyrie showed up. KD showed up. You can see the effects of not having Klay Thompson. I wish him the best and hope he comes back and continues to kick you-know-what in the NBA. But at best, I could say Golden State maybe being a 7th or 8th seed at best. Because you know what the Lakers are going to do? The momentum is favoring them. Of course, winning the championship this past summer or fall, I would be more concerned about the future of the Nets than it would be of the Golden State Warriors, even though you're both concerned. Full credit for the Nets. I'm glad they showed up, but I just don't see how this is going to work long term later in the season.
John, I agree about Brooklyn. It looks good, but again, this is a one-game sample size. But I more so, Allcorn, agree with your thoughts, though. How will this team react, though, after losses? Because we know about Kyrie Irving kind of putting himself on mute towards the media. He's had a couple of very scarce media appearances, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Of course, we saw the Nets get fined $25,000 for him not partaking in media access periods after a preseason game. Some of the antics, though, about him burning the sage at the Garden against the Celtics in a preseason game. And obviously the bickering and the banter between KD and Kyrie Irving, gaining up on one of the most respected players of his time at the point guard position, Steve Nash, first-time head coach. And at least for tonight, on this Tuesday, it looked good. Okay, so you had Irving look great. KD, I think, though, him being back on the floor to me made me happy because, seeing a player come back from a very devastating time of injury and, being away from the game, getting back into shape. And I thought he was moving very well out there. So for Brooklyn, it's great for one night, though. But I think, John, that you and I are in mutual agreement, though. How will this team react, though, when the going gets tough? 9 more games into the season, 19 more games into the season, 10, 20, 30 games in, or at the All-Star break when you play or finish off your 41st game of the season, and that record is probably at 500, around 500, below 500. How is it going to be, though, in that locker room? Will there be more finger pointing at, but it's the coach. He's a first-timer. We don't need this guy. We'll just have, ourselves do it. Or when will the personalities more so, again, kind of, clash heads and stuff of that caliber again? And I don't want this, folks, to sound like we're piling on Brooklyn. But just the fact, though, that you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant on the same roster, and kind of, though, more so how some comments, though, made over the offseason about we don't need a head coach. And again, they're pretty much, in my mind, for one, disrespecting my favorite NBA player of the time that I spent watching pro basketball, but also one of the greatest players to play his position. So, yeah, absolutely. Full credit goes to Brooklyn. But how will things be, though, 10 games in, 20 games in, and if that record is not the same, then of course, John, Golden State, probably though another year, though, just like throw the hands up, like, it's going to be Curry, hopefully staying healthy to, carry a very, not very intimidating star talented ball club, and I know that Kelly Oubre had a very good little show of promise. James Wiseman getting his feet wet today with his rookie debut. Of course, Steph Curry coming back from the broken wrist. John, what do you think about Golden State, though? Because I think that some people had some expectations if Klay was healthy, that they'd be at least maybe not back to the top of the Western Conference, but at least in the conversation. But now, though, that you saw them play tonight, though, very, rough spurts of this game of not scoring, rebounding not being there, missing baskets, Curry, again, having to score a lot of points or at least exert a lot of energy to keep this team or at least keep the score somewhat close. John, does tonight's game kind of change your thoughts about how Golden State might look, though, throughout the course of the season, or what do you think?
If they had fully healthy Klay Thompson in the start, if they had Draymond and Steph, they would be better than the Clippers because we know what's happened with the Clippers. We've already talked about that. The marriage was never going to happen. It was a false marriage from the start. But talking about this, it just shows this could see how great is Steph Curry. Obviously, we know he was the number one guy. This was still his team when KD was there. It's easy for Steph to look great when you have all the players being healthy. All they're doing their thing. Draymond playing defense and not kicking guys in the nose. You know what I mean? But we're alive. So when all the guys are doing their job and Steph is shooting those threes and being a dog, that's great. I would never criticize. He's doing great. But when it gets going tough, are we going to see 2015 or 2014 or 2016 or maybe 2017 Steph Curry this year? I think we're going to see a couple of those moments moving forward. But I hope I'm wrong because I never want to see a team not go back to what they were. I just don't think we're going to see, and I hope I'm wrong. Again, when we say we're critical about a team, we're not talking about them as people. We're talking about the situation on or off the court as players, not as people. I just don't think we're going to see the same Golden State Warriors team from 2014, 2015, 2016 to 2017, or even 2018 to 2019. Because the fact of the matter is Draymond's getting older, and he may not be that longer. Contracts are going to expire, even with Klay Thompson coming back in hopefully 2021, if not midway through the 2021 season. So there's just too many factors when you're trying to build a dynasty versus a franchise, because you have contracts that's going to happen. They're going to come up. You're going to have injuries, and you're going to have clash in personalities and hard times. This is the difference between the Spurs. Yes, they didn't have the sexiest players, but they were able to win championships over time. You're able to keep a lot of your players over time. We're just not going to see the same Golden State Warriors team in 2014 or 2015 or back into the championship of last year. Let's say to 2018. I just think it's unfortunate. This is still Steph's team. I think Steph is going to fall out. I just don't think he's going to be at an MVP caliber-like form, but I don't think that's going to hurt his legacy. And I don't want people saying, oh, the coach is so overrated. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's great that you have that great roster, but it's about a coach. Can he handle that many talented players? Because when you have that many talented players, you have what you've seen, Callan, in the sports industry, clash in personalities, and that's not always a good thing. We're just not going to see the same Golden State Warriors team, but I think they have maybe some stuff to look forward to, but potentially some uncomfortable conversations going into potentially the offseason in 2021.
There's going to be difficult decisions for this ball club to make, more so the salary cap issues, contracts, of course, also coming up. With that, John, some thoughts from our good man, James Gonzalez. He says, for the Warriors, another free year for them without Klay. The Nets look so good, but I want them to fail. Better drama that way. But I think that goes to the point, though, Allcorn, that we basically agreed upon. How will it be, though, 10 games from now, 20 games from now, at the end of the first half of the season? But I think, though, that James is on to a valid point, though, J.A. They look good, but I think some people want them to fail because it's better for the drama because of how New York basketball, Nets, and the Knicks have been over the past several seasons.
Better content, too, so hey.
It's all that matters. But again, folks, it is the Nets winning game one of the NBA season, 125-99 Brooklyn over Golden State. Last game for the night, John, in the NBA, the hallway series at Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles, the Clippers and the Lakers. Of course, the Lakers getting their 2019-2020 NBA championship rings in front of a empty house at the big office in downtown LA. Also, I thought it was a very great idea by the Lakers to not unfurl the banner until fans are allowed back inside of Staples Center. But as the Clippers running the party 116-109, the Clippers over the Lakers behind 59 combined points from both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in this game, while, of course, the Lakers probably more so basking in the glory of their 1920 NBA championship ring ceremony at Staples Center on Tuesday. John, obviously, we know that there's some teams out there that don't care about the regular season, and more so, I think the Lakers and I think any LeBron James-led ball club would say the same thing. Miami twice, Cleveland once, the Lakers last season. Yeah, of course, you want to play well in the regular season. That's what gets you to the promised land. But, of course, there's times, though, where guys take games off and don't play their best. But this game, though, for me, was basically over when the first quarter ended because the Lakers were not able to shoot the ball very well. Paul George and Leonard were going very, very well in that first half, first quarter for that matter as well. And, of course, the Lakers did, in fact, get close. But at the same time, though, these are the Clippers after all, John, and they have somewhat, again, tried to knock the Lakers off. And they've been very close, but, of course, not been able to do that over the past several seasons. But more so, my gripe, though, here for the Clippers, where was this play in the, when you're up 3-1 on Denver? What happens when, what's the difference between being up 3-1 and then opening night of the regular season? I don't get it, but obviously it's obviously some flashes, though, of brilliance for both Leonard and also for Paul George. Of course, the Lakers with Anthony Davis and also LeBron James. Some new pieces getting in. Dennis Schroeder getting in today, as did Montrezl Harrell. Already a little bit of bickering going on there, J.A., between both Harrell and, of course, Patrick Beverley on the ball club. But obviously, though, John, great way for the Clippers to start the season. And, of course, the Lakers probably shrugging it off, saying we'll move on to the next game and we'll go from there. But, John, overall takeaways as the Clippers win on opening night, just like last season, they knock off the Lakers in game one of the season.
The Clippers are trying to hide the inevitable of the 2021 offseason. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a team that already had drama before the season started. PG 13, which I call 13%. It's just what he shows up when it actually matters. I know because, oh, you need to play in the regular season. Well, that's great, but now with the 72 games, that gives them more ammo to get even more serious about the playoffs because we see a lot of these teams in the NBA get all of these great rosters, get all these players, but then come playoff time, they just don't show up. So some of them are too invested in the regular season. For me, I'm not saying this is a meaningless game, but the Lakers we know what they're going to do. We know that most likely they're going to win the West because they're not looking at the short term. They're looking at the long term after the 72 game season, the first, second, third round, and potentially the NBA Finals in 2021. I just don't see the Clippers. All they're doing is trying to delay mentally what's going to happen in 2021. Kawhi's gone. You panicked and you gave Paul George that contract knowing that Kawhi's going to be gone after 2021 because Kawhi is as quiet as anybody. I just don't see moving forward how this benefits the Clippers. I mean, if you already have drama, more drama than a 13-year-old teenager, and you already have issues of the recruitment of Kawhi Leonard, all that mentally is going to mess with their head and the drama of Paul George acting like he's the baddest you-know-what on the earth. This is just one game, like we said about the Nets. This is going on the regular season, going to the next 40, 50 games moving forward, we're going to look back on this game for the Clippers and be like, oh, maybe John was right or Callan was right. Lakers were like, oh, yeah, they were right. They knew exactly what they're doing. You can criticize LeBron like I have in the past for not taking the regular season seriously, but at the same time, when you see other teams taking the regular season seriously, and when I say taking it seriously, obviously you should, but don't put all your time and effort into that. You got to think about the long-term solution because LeBron is talking about the playoffs and not taking the regular season seriously, and he has, four rings already, two in Miami, one in Cleveland, of course, this last one with the Los Angeles Lakers. So if an NBA team wants to win, yes, take the regular season seriously, but don't be totally invested in it and then completely ignore the playoffs. Lakers are going to continue to do what they're doing. The Clippers are just delaying the inevitable, and I just don't see how the Clippers are going to be a threat this year.
John, I hate to make this comparison, but I think you'll like it, though, is the Clippers remind me of Isaiah Leung. They put all their eggs in the basket of one game on the schedule, and they don't think things out over a 82-game season, a 17-week season, or an 82-game season, or 162 in baseball, or 34 games in the WNBA or Major League Soccer. But that the Clippers, to me, though, they always seem to put all their eggs in the basket of the games against the Lakers, more so recently than in years past, I'd say, because that they've been somewhat more competitive against the Lakers in the recent years than any time previously. But I think it's a great first game. But the Clippers and Nets, to me, draw parallels, or they are intersecting lines, is that there's going to come a time, though, where it's going to spill over. And I still don't think Tyronn Lue is the right guy to lead that Clippers ball club, because in a way, though, Steve Nash and Tyronn Lue will probably become, doormats for KD, Kyrie, PG, and even Kawhi Leonard. And I think there's an old saying, John, the quiet ones are the ones you usually have to watch the most. And of course, that Kawhi is not really big about speaking his mind and being, not using social media, or he doesn't really talk a lot, to the press or stuff like that. He kind of gives one-word answers. But that Kawhi, though, I think has kind of rubbed some people the wrong way post his time in San Antonio, even in Toronto, and now I think with the Clippers because of both him and George kind of getting that star treatment. But at least, though, on the court, though, can the Clippers kind of tune out that, that unnecessary noise? Because we know they're kind of right now under investigation for how they actually recruited Kawhi Leonard to come to the Clippers organization, that Jerry West is right now at the centerpiece of that investigation, where there's a representative or like a third man in there, but it's kind of asking for $2.5 million, that the league could step in and take some action against the organization. But tonight, though, at least, great play by the Clippers in this ball game across the board. Nick Batum perhaps could be a diamond in the rough signing. Serge Ibaka could be a diamond in the rough signing for the Clippers. Those two guys look very good. Patrick Patterson looked good in spurts as well. as Paul George minus his pass to the referee tonight, which is already attracting a full moment for the season. And, of course, Kawhi getting points as well. But more so that, to me, though, the Clippers just seem to put a bit too much onus on certain games. And I hope they play that same way, though, Christmas Day against Denver, because I think, John, if there's one team the Clippers need to put all their eggs in the basket in for one game, to me, it's any game against Denver, not against the Lakers.
You're right. I just think, like you said, with all that drama, just like in a relationship, there's so much drama, you can't overcome it, and you have an investigation. And if Kawhi ever sits out, I defended him when he left San Antonio because of the injury. But now, it's hard for me to want to be a fan of him because of this. With all that, maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know the NBA like I claim to be. But let's say look at the last 10, 15 plus years when there's been a scandal and there's drama. When's the last time that's helped, or where they've gone to the NBA finals?
Never.
Exactly. So this history proves otherwise. People know sports. History shows this is not in the Clippers' favor. The Clippers both in at the short-term solution versus the long-term solution, and that's why most likely I don't see him winning an NBA championship. I'm not saying this because Ty Lue is a bad coach. I'm not saying that he could or isn't, like what he did with the Cavs, but the fact of the matter is right now, I don't know if anybody can handle that drama. Maybe at best, great Popovich. And this is not, I think, my opinion. I don't know about you. This is not me negative saying about Ty Lue or that he couldn't. But anybody who wants to deal with that drama, you need a guy that is this is not me saying that Ty Lue's a bad coach, but you need a guy that stand firm to put your foot down. We're not putting up with this baloney that they're going to do this. I'm the coach, and if you don't like it, you can go. Because too long for the Clippers, there's been so much undisciplined, like a 3-year-old trying to learn how to potty train, and it's just not going to help the Clippers moving forward.
No, I agree. I shouldn't say never about a team that has drama that wins a title. It doesn't happen very often that you have, teammates that hate each other or there's no team chemistry. I would say it's more of like it rarely happens, but there's some teams, though, that probably have had to kind of go through those, weird breakups and divorces and stuff like that. They probably do, in fact, win one. But guys hate each other on those teams, though. And I've heard some stories about some teams that maybe have had some minor run-ins like that. But again, the Clippers knock off the Lakers, spoil the ring ceremony, and spoil the party for the Lake Show. 116-109, the Clippers defeat the Lakers behind a 59 combined point effort from both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But again, where was that, though, fellas, in the postseason? James with a couple of thoughts about this game. He says, Pathetic P actually showed up. Ha, ha, ha.
PP.
James about the Lakers, he says, it must be tough on ring night in any sport, so much focus and attention on the rings and banners. John, I think it may sound like an excuse, though, but especially I would say, though, without fans, though, in the arena, that I think also kind of takes a little bit away, though, from this night. And again, we all had to watch the game via television or listen on the radio. But I think that even if fans are there, though, playing on the opening night, though, where you're getting the rings, though, sometimes you kind of have like that adrenaline not quite there, and there's not a lot to feed off of, though, especially with there being no fans in the stands.
You definitely have a valid point. I think even more than that, and I may a little bit disagree, but I think that one of their other impacts is that they were trying to honor Kobe, because Kobe is now going to be in the Hall of Fame next year. They delayed the 2020 to 2021, and I think this ring was also for Kobe and Gigi and all the friends that they had on the plane. So I think that much emotion, losing a brother, like I said, sports is a brotherhood. It's bigger than all these views and all that. And that emotion alone could make a grown man, what. So I think that, I'm not excusing it, but when you lose a brother like that, it's hard to get that out of your head. And I think that got them distracted in tonight, let alone with the 10 plus years of not being able to get to the NBA finals.
I do want to applaud Adam Silver real quick, because Commissioner Silver was in LA to give, kind of in a way be there for the ring ceremony. But I think he did a great job with his speech. And he also did not attempt to say Kobe's name during the ceremony, but he kind of in a way said it in a roundabout way of like, we know how much adversity that the ball club has gone through with the pandemic plus personal tragedy, like in a roundabout way. He brought it up and didn't actually explicitly say Kobe's name, which I thought was a very Good job by the commish. James also says the Clippers making the move to get Ibaka will help them so much. I would agree, though, because Ibaka, I mean, not only is he a great stopper in the paint, though, John, the guy's got a pretty good shot, though, too. And again, we've seen, though, more so, J.A., the big man kind of being told to leave his post and go and shoot beyond the arc, go from the mid-range and just not be a guy there standing there doing post-ups, right-handed post-ups, left-handed, or sky hooks or put-back dunks, basically.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be a big thing for the Clippers. But again, I say this no matter what, drama will always prevail over the chance of the ring. I mean, they couldn't do it with Blake Griffin or Paul George. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry, Clippers fans. It's going to be a long time before they get back to the championship game.
James also says the Clippers can't wait to get to the playoffs already with how they played tonight over the Lakers. And finally, James says Kawhi better not sit any games for no reason. I guarantee you he will sit out Christmas Day against the Denver Nuggets in Denver at this rate.
I'm not betting money on that because I would lose $5.
I think we both would, but knowing Kawhi's pattern, though, James and John, for that matter, last season, play one game, sit out two, play one, sit out three. I mean, if that trend continues, that team is going to be further stuck in the mud, if you ask me. But once more, the Clippers over the Lakers tonight. From Staples, 116-109, the Clippers over the Lakers. 59 combined points between both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. With that, John, some news over in college football and some very big bombshell and perhaps head-scratching news today in college football by the Auburn Tigers, who have hired Boise State's head coach, Brian Harsin, to a contract. Harsin had a very impressive record in time at Boise State. He'll go from the Mountain West Conference to the SEC for the Auburn Tigers. Of course, the Tigers buying out and firing the contract and the head coach, Gus Malzahn, just a few days ago. John, this is a head-scratching and very puzzling hire by the Auburn Tigers for football, because you're literally, John, hiring a coach in an unproven conference in the Mountain West where it's been dominated for years by Boise State University for a long time recently. Between Boise State, occasionally San Diego State, maybe Air Force, Utah State, but mainly, though, Boise State has run the roost, though, in the Mountain West Conference. You're going to be hiring a coach from a very unproven conference to try to win you football games in the almighty, big, bad Southeastern Conference. This move, to me, spells the word disaster in big, bold lettering, if you ask me. John, your reaction to this news by Auburn, again, after days of firing Gus Malzahn. It's Brian Harsin, the head coach from Boise State, going from Boise down to the SEC and to coach at Auburn.
I think he could be great for Auburn. I just don't want him to make the same mistakes that former Auburn coaches have had. I have paid attention to what Auburn has done the past 10, 15 years, but what have they done? Like, have we talked about Auburn being a champion, being a national champion, just doing what other teams have done, like Alabama, maybe LSU to a little bit, or anything else? I'm great for him. I hope he changes it and makes it a winning organization. I just don't see how bringing him as head coach, this is not necessarily a negative hit on him. It's just how bringing Notre Dame to give Notre Dame more respect. What is he going to do different than past Notre Dame head coaches versus ones from a couple years ago?
John, this is, like I said, though, this is a very interesting hire by Auburn, because I think Isaiah and I had our sentiments, though, last week when the news came down that Gus Malzahn had been fired by the Tigers. And Isaiah had kind of thought, they've got to be getting some big name coach like a Urban Meyer or a Bob Stoops coming either out of retirement to coach at Auburn, because why would they blow out Gus Malzahn and that huge contract of his to hire a coach from the Mountain West Conference? This, again, makes, for one, no sense to me. And secondly, it shows that Auburn, in my mind, is kind of, in a way, going through a bit of a identity crisis and a rebuild because of the talent not being there this past season, the record being very bad, but also Are those recruits, though, choosing to go elsewhere because of the coach in place? I know that sometimes, John, we see that a lot, though, in college sports where maybe the coach is the reason why players don't go to a school or they leave the school in the middle of the season. But to me, though, this is a very puzzling hire. And if I was a Auburn fan, Auburn season ticket holder, or a Auburn booster, I would be probably questioning this hire to the fullest extent in every fiber in my body. Like, we're going to blow out our head coach in that contract to hire a coach from a unproven, little-known conference on the West Coast, because why is what I would ask. But, John, do you kind of feel like, though, I kind of feel like that this might be like the Stephen Salas hiring by the Rockets. There might be more to this story than what we probably think or know right now, J.A. What do you think?
Exactly. It just makes me think that maybe, like we see in sports in the NFL or NCAA or college or basketball, there may be some things behind the scenes that we don't know about or may not know about unless for the next 5 to 10, 15 plus years, or just not at all. It's not like this was a rumor, unless I'm not following college football, but I don't believe there's a rumor that, hey, we're going to blow up your contract, you're going to buy you out, and then get this guy. What is this coach right here going to do different? I think Auburn is a team that we've maybe talked about in the past. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only time in the last 10, 15 years we've really talked about them was when Cam Newton was there. Again, that was just for 1 year because he transferred from Florida because Tim Tebow was the guy with you-know-who at the receiver and you-know-who at the tight end position. I just don't see anything changing. It's not it may be completely his fault or what he can't do. Can he instill discipline? It's just when the same organization's done the same thing over and over and over, despite hiring new head coaches. I don't know how many head coaches Notre Dame has had. We've talked about them. Oh, it's a good school for education. But is this going to be the coach where, oh, Notre Dame, this is a Power 5 team. This is a team that is considered for the college playoffs maybe in the next 3 to 4 years. They're not going to dethrone Alabama. They're not going to dethrone all these some of the Clemson. Hopefully, if LSU can get back to the top, maybe Florida, probably not Florida, but we get the point. I just want to know, even though we might not be able to now, if that makes sense, why would you hire this guy? This does not mean it's a bad hire. Why buy out a coach unless you think this coach can change the non-culture they've had in Notre Dame for a very long time?
John, I would also say the last time we talked about Auburn was the kick six against Alabama recently. That's like the last
2013, I think, right? 2013,
2013, 2014 in that time frame is like the last notable time we talked about Auburn recently. James also says, John, sounds like Auburn went the route of the flavor of the month in getting Harsin. We'll see if it works out, but Big Brother Alabama is still king of the state and probably en route to another college football national championship. But once more, folks, and some very interesting college football news on this Tuesday, it is Boise State's head coach Brian Harsin on his way to Auburn after his time spent with the Boise State Broncos and in the Mountain West Conference. With that, John, further in more college football news, Alex Scarborough of ESPN.com reports that Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators have been given out punishment and penalties for illegal recruiting, which includes a one-year probation, and head coach Dan Mullen given a 1-year show cause order after the NCAA determined that the football program violated recruiting contact rules on 2 occasions in 2019. Mullen was found to have failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance and will be banned from all off-campus recruiting activity during the fall of the fall 2020 evaluation period. Also given a 4-day off-campus recruiting ban during the next contact period in 2021, and the school has banned him from recruiting for the first 10 days of January 2020 in that contact period. Quickly, at the heart of the infractions report are Mullen's contacts with a Seattle area recruit in January of last year, and Mullen arranging for a impersonal off-campus recruiting contact when he messaged the recruit leading up to and on the day of Mullen's visit to his high school. And Mullen also admitted that he had a 15-minute meeting with the recruit's head football coach while the recruit was also in the room. Florida also ended its recruitment of the player in question, will not recruit any prospects at his high school through the upcoming 2020-2021 academic year. And finally, in the report as well, the university also self-reported a level 3 violation when it had a series of unofficial visits at its football offices with 7 non-scholastic football teams on March 28th and 29th. The teams were on their way to a tournament in Tampa, and a total of 127 prospective recruits were given a tour of the team facility, during which time a assistant coach had contact with several athletes and posed for a photo with at least one of those teams. John, like I say a lot, though, man, if something this small gets out there, you should expect to have a phone call from the NCAA with penalties that are probably the size of your CVS pharmacy receipt. It's going to be a laundry list of things. It's going to be this thing, bang, 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 and all the way down to the bottom where it looks like a long opening crawl to the next Star Wars movie, my friend. And this is in college basketball. We've seen this more so, I think, recently, though, John, with at least 9 schools in college basketball, football programs, and sometimes other sports, though, with stuff like this, recruiting, improper benefits, even posing for a photo with a team on the, at the facility. It's just like, John, one mistake in college sports, and you are putting yourself in jeopardy, your team in jeopardy, and your school in jeopardy for a lot of harsh punishment, my friend, from the NCAA offices. John, in a reaction to Florida football once again being stuck in the limelight for the wrong reasons.
I will continue to drill this in the people's head like a mother does a teenager. Folks, the grass is not greener on the other side. You cannot cheat your way. There is no easy way to win. In what way? How strict the NCAA is, whether I completely agree with it on certain rules like we've talked about off camera. I just don't understand in what way Florida and whoever truly was involved in the organization with this issue thought that they were going to get away with it. Folks, I don't care if you did something when you were a kid or an adult, you think you didn't get caught. Sooner or later, you're going to get caught. Even if it's 10 to 15 years from now or at the worst possible time. Well, folks, ladies and gentlemen, this is at the worst possible time, especially when Florida lost against LSU and then they lost again just this past Saturday afternoon, evening. I don't care if you're in college. I don't care if you're in the pros. If I sound like a mad because I'm passionate because I don't like mediocrity and I don't like stupidity when it comes to football in terms of you think you can just take the easy way out and expect to win a championship. As much as we dog on Alabama and all these other teams, they've done it. They didn't do what you were doing. They didn't take the easy way out. Yes, we can maybe dog on them because of their easy schedule, but they don't take a game off. They take every single game like a playoff elimination game. That's how it should be taken seriously in sports. I don't know who gave them false information in terms of, oh, no, we're not going to get caught. It's just like when you're a teenager and someone's like, you want to do this? Like you probably could insinuate know what I'm talking about. That could ruin not just for 1 year, but for potentially years to come. I mean, look at Reggie Bush. He just now was able to go back to the college a year or two ago with what was happening there. I just don't understand anybody that's watching the live stream how if you want to win or go do what you want, what they wanted to do is win a championship, which they haven't done. I can't remember the last time they won a championship. Never take the easy way. Just like in high school when I cheated on a test and I thought I got away with it. No, I didn't. Just like with Florida. No, they weren't going to get away with it. Colin, in what logical way, as you've watched college football and college basketball over the years, when you've seen people win championships, they don't take the easy way out. They work their butt off every single day. You take that Mamba mentality in college football, college basketball, in the NFL. I don't want your sorry excuse. You knew this was going to happen. You know the NCAA is more strict. Sorry, I had a lisp there. I'm more strict than. Okay, we all make mistakes, but whatever. Again, I blame it on Isaiah's internet, so whatever. But we all have those times where we like that strict parent you see with that teenager after they got pregnant. But that's how times it by a million or plus. That's how strict the NCAA is. Whether we agree with it or not, you sign a contract when you come with the team that you agreed to abide by the rules, whether we agree with some of them or not, and you violated it. You violated the rules. Just as like Callan, if you worked for who you work for or who I've worked for in the past, if I violated a rule, what do you think is probably going to happen? It's not just they were thinking about the short term. And when you think about the short term, you've been freaking out and panic with fear of, oh, we haven't won. It takes time, especially in college football, when a lot of guys now don't stay 3 to 4 years, especially if they could be a potential high draft pick. Florida, I'm ashamed of you. Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer would definitely be ashamed of y'all. I believe, I can't remember, another player coming out from that draft would be, without a doubt, ashamed of you.
Joakim Noah would be ashamed too, and he didn't even play football when he was at Florida. James had one more comment about the Auburn Tigers hiring Brian Harsin, the head coach from Boise State. Funny how Harsin wanted Boise State football to go to a bigger conference, and now he just is moving up. Where again, there was talk of Boise wanting to perhaps get out of the Mountain West Conference. But again, folks, Florida football though is in hot water due to again recruiting violations and also a show cause penalty against their head coach Dan Mullen. With that, John, one story from the NFL though that involves again, sadly, very disgruntled, not really disgruntled, but more so off the field issue plagued Josh Gordon of the Seattle Seahawks, who, per reports, JA, has failed to meet terms of his conditional reinstatement, and his return to the field is now on hold per multiple ESPN sources and ESPN reports, though. John, I think we talked about this a little bit, though, recently, where this is a guy, though, I know that he's had problems, but you kind of feel bad, though, for guys that just have problems away from the field. They're gifted athletes, but they just can't seem to get the help they need, though, away from the field, though. And they rely, I think, a lot on teammates, coaches, members of the organization to kind of be there for them. And it sadly sucks to kind of see that come to fruition. John, your reaction to the news about Josh Gordon being denied right now his reinstatement due to, again, some more problems with perhaps contractual obligations?
I want to make this clear, and we talk about stuff non-sports on here. We're not meant to do this walk of life alone. We need to have people around us. I'm not here to judge him. I've been a fan of him because I see how bad he wants to come back into the NFL. Folks, we can go back to 2013 when he had 2 to 3 plus games of 200 plus yards and whoever he had at quarterback. If he was able to keep his issues off the field done, he could have been a top 5 receiver in the conversations with Julio Jones and Odell before all the other stuff has happened. And, of course, he could have been in a conversation with DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, which sounds crazy if all these issues didn't happen off the field. But anybody out there that's dealing with that, you need to get help. This is not me saying shame on you. It's because this is a serious thing. It's important to have people around you. We know Chris Carter dealt with that back in Philly, and I believe they let him go and the issues with that. And I know organization was helping him and went to Minnesota, and he talked about it on First Things First about 2 to 3 years ago when this debate question came onto the show. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to criticize you. This is a guy I was rooting for. You could talk about, maybe go back in the group chat somewhere. I'm rooting for this guy to come back in the NFL. I just think the sad thing is maybe he may not. He should probably retire from the NFL. I'm not telling him what to do, but I think he needs to just focus right now on fighting those demons in and out. This drug issue or whatever it is, it's not as simple as wiping your boogers after a gigantic fluff of it came out. It's not that simple. We're not here to say, oh my gosh, because I'm Christian, oh my gosh, you're dealing with this. Folks, he's human just like us. I don't care about your platform. I don't care how many receiving yards you have. Get some help. Have those people around you. And maybe, I'm not saying he doesn't, but maybe he doesn't. Because this is a very serious situation. Whether he gets back in the NFL or not, I'm without a doubt going to root for Josh Gordon. Because guaranteed, yeah, maybe I haven't dealt with drug addiction at all in terms of like needle or doing with the what, as you know, I'm not going to say what it is on air, but even if he doesn't come back in the NFL, which would be unfortunate because he really hasn't played a full season since 2013, I believe, 2013, 2014. So it's been since my sophomore year in high school. And this is not the dog on him. This is because maybe other people can agree or disagree with what I have to say. But I'm rooting for Gordon because I've had maybe not people that have seen my friends that have dealt with it, but I've volunteered for youth groups and seen people that deal with drug addiction. It's more than just mental. I think if you don't have those kind of people in your life, you're never gonna make it. Like, we could have all the money, like he has all the money. You and I could have all the money. But if we didn't have this group we have here at the MI6 or anywhere else, it really doesn't matter. Because he hasn't dealt with it. That when I say that does not mean saying, shame on you, you haven't dealt with it. What are you thinking? This is, maybe he hasn't dealt with it because maybe he doesn't have the complete support system around him. I believe Chris Carter is also a big supporter of him. I think they're talking. I don't know. I don't have any big NFL connections just yet. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he does get back in the NFL. But I think it's best for him to not try to push so hard to get back in the NFL. But the more importantly, deal with his inner demons and be the best person he can. And hopefully in a year or two, he can come back for a couple of games. Because this is a guy that could have been a future first ballot Hall of Famer. We were heading to potentially have those conversations in the future. Imagine if this happened. Him, Josh Cribbs, and let's say Baker Mayfield. Let's say obviously Baker came in the NFL years before. This team would have been something very interesting. I think Josh Gordon, maybe just at the receiver position, is one of the biggest what ifs in NFL history. I don't know. Josh Gordon's probably never going to see this. But I'm rooting for him. I hope he doesn't. And you know what? Maybe, I'm not saying I can reach out to this PR agent or not, but I'm rooting for him because this is bigger than money. This is bigger than fame. Because when you're dead, who gives a fart about your money? It is about how you made an impact in people. And I hope that he does get the hope that he does. Because I never want to see a story that we see in the NFL or ESPN or Fox Sports saying that Josh Gordon, unfortunately, you know what? I don't want to see that. I'm rooting for him, and hopefully he can come back, but I just don't see that anytime soon.
You know, John, very well said, my friend, but I also think about not just Josh Gordon, but I also think about Delonte West, longtime NBA great, all-star great player who also sadly fell by the wayside after his time was over in the NBA and he became homeless. And I think that Mark Cuban, the Mavericks owner, again, he's had a lot of time spent with the Mavericks organization, and Mark tried his damnedest to get him help. I think he actually helped him get into a rehab facility and kind of get him off his, back on his feet and hope for that, a new chapter to kind of come. And that, these are the stories you hate to hear, though, regardless if you like the player, the organization or not, but that they're like us. They struggle with things away from the field, away from the court, from the arena, the stadium, and their personal lives. We hear a lot of these stories, though, John, of athletes who have come from broken homes, bad neighborhoods, abusive relationships or abusive parents, drug addictions, alcohol addictions, other things. And they battle those hurdles and they sometimes keep it private, which I think, though, is why Kevin Love has become one of my favorite athletes, John, because he has become a very big advocate of, hey, it's okay to talk about stuff like this. And probably people don't want to hear about it, but if we're there to listen to people, we save someone's life more than likely. I mean, there's a friend of mine out there who was going through a very rough relationship, and they thankfully got out of it, but they reached out to me to kind of be that person to talk to, and kind of, in a way, get out of it and kind of get back onto a better path. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do is just be there for people. And especially nowadays, during the time that we're in. But John, we'll go back over to you, bud. Any more thoughts to add on here about, as we've already said, though, but Josh Gordon right now, due to some issues with failing to meet terms of his conditional reinstatement, his return to the field right now still is back on hold in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, he probably is done in the NFL. If we saw, I'm never going to apologize for being too passionate about a situation. Again, I don't know him. I don't know anybody out there that's dealing with this, but he's probably not going to be back in the NFL. And I hope he is. But even if he is, he maybe have a good game or two but it isn't going to have that Hall of Fame story. Isn't going to have what could have been. I think that's not on his mind. I don't think he's thinking about that. I'm hoping he's thinking more about getting help, because this is more bigger than any of us could think. And definitely rooting for him, and hopefully he gets this.
I agree, man. And again, we hope the best for Josh Gordon and for anyone out there going through some trouble. With that, John, one final story. I think it's a good time to end on a good note for our program tonight. We'll actually, folks, go directly to the horse's mouth here. You folks know that we have somewhat been keeping a very close eye on the Keontae Keontae Johnson situation. Again, folks, as a reminder, but Keontae Johnson is the Florida basketball player who, again, collapsed on the court during a timeout right before Christmas time. Or I should say Thanksgiving time, not Christmas time. The holiday is coming up, though, on Friday. But again, a very scary situation. Keontae, again, collapsed during a timeout. The game was paused as he had to leave on a stretcher to the hospital via an ambulance and was in a coma. But thankfully, folks, Keontae has this message for those of you out there wondering about how, in fact, he is doing. And this is courtesy, folks, of his Twitter account and also via our friends over at ESPN.com. Let's take a listen and take a look.
Hey everybody, first and foremost, I'd like to thank God. I know y'all haven't sent y'all prayers out the last few weeks, and me and my parents are very grateful for the prayers that have been going out. To all doctor and medical staff at Tallahassee Memorial and UF Shands, I just want to say thank you for all the support y'all gave me, especially the lady that was in the gym at Florida State. To my Gator Nation and UF athletic family, I just want to thank you for all the prayers that y'all gave out to me. Go Gators.
So there it is, John, the first time we have seen Keontae Johnson post the medical emergency, talk things over via his Twitter account today on this Tuesday, giving a message of a message of reassurance about his health after, again, that very weird and very scary and very disturbing couple of days, couple of weeks, maybe a week or more so for Keontae. John, at least hearing that news, though, man, again, we had some rumblings of him being in a coma. I believe he's had a bit of a minor setback, though, with maybe a heart issue per some sources. But, John, any thoughts or reaction to Keontae's first message to the fans and, above all, everyone post his incident a couple of days or about a week or so ago?
I mean, people can't tell me prayer doesn't work. And I think this is the biggest thing. Like I say this, I know, butcher again and again and again, is that we're not guaranteed the next 5 minutes. He didn't know during that timeout, I plan to pass out. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this doesn't plan. You don't know. I mean, I didn't know 10 months ago, boom, I'm going to message a Facebook group one time back in March, and boom, look what we're doing here and meeting all these great people. It's not guaranteed. To see how in almost not even 2 weeks since the incident happened, it just shows that if nobody learns anything from this is a shame. But if y'all don't get anything else out of the content here, is that take advantage with everybody that you know or people that are around you, because the fact of the matter is tomorrow isn't here yet. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. We're not guaranteed this next guest. We're not guaranteed the next 5 minutes. That, to me, is more important than sports or anything else. This is the side of sports people don't see or people don't necessarily understand, because a lot of times we talk about the stats, the numbers, and we give our opinions on that. But this is the other side of sports that happens. I know there's been a video years and years ago, it's an old one, where a guy literally died on the court. So it's just, you just never know what can happen. Yes, there are huge risks for college basketball, or especially college football, but take advantage of each moment. This is a story that we want to see in college, whether you like sports or not. Especially during these crazy times when things are ... out the window. This is a kind of stuff you want to see, because some people may not have the most hope right now, or don't interested in sports, and maybe this gets them interested in sports and gets them into a career, and then boom, things come from this story. This is what we want to see in sports, but also the hardship about sports and Callan, as you know, in this industry, there aren't as many stories like this as we would like to see in terms of a comeback story.
Yeah, they're very far and in between, sadly, John. And I think Alex Smith has defined those odds this year in a year that, we feel hopeless. We feel, that we're not at our best. We see Alex Smith again after his story of the broken leg and the surgeries, and, he's going to lose the leg. It's going to be amputated, but yet he comes back, makes a full recovery, and he's got a team right now in the thick of the NFC playoff race right now, though he didn't play this past week, though. But he's looking great, and I think he's already won Comeback Player of the Year, and I would think, though, that award becomes named after him in the very close future. But, folks, a couple of key things to know here about the story. That video, folks, that was released by Keontae Johnson comes 10 days after the incident happened. So 10 days removed from his incident. Keontae Johnson put that video out on his Twitter account. Some more insight, folks, on this situation. He has improved since December the 12th, the day he collapsed after a timeout in the first half of the game versus Florida State. Both teams were visibly shaken by the incident, much like I would compare this, I think, John, basketball-wise, to the Kevin Ware broken leg against with Louisville, I think 2010, I want to say. And that was a very similar situation of a guy going down for the count with a very gruesome injury. Play did continue after Seminoles coach Leonard Hamilton said his team would continue. Florida counterpart Mike White decided it was best for his team. After the game, school officials ruled his condition as critical but stable, and few details about the incident have been released, but his gradual progress has been well documented. Later in the week, just previously, he had FaceTime teammates, and by Friday of last week, he had released a video thanking the doctors who helped him and friends and family members for supporting him. Florida did postpone 4 games following that loss to Florida State and after that injury. However, though, Johnson, per the AP, did test positive for COVID-19 prior to this season. As we know, though, John, that the Big Ten, though, and also the ACC had a very different protocol for the football season because due to some of the ramifications of COVID-19, the virus can lead to a heart condition. I'm not a doctor or a medical expert. I believe it is called myocarditis. Florida officials have not discussed the specifics of or the cause of the incident. So it does, in fact, have some ramifications towards the heart muscle. And that was, of course, a big talking point, though, John, with the ACC during the football season. But thankfully, folks, some great news, though, on this Tuesday. Again, Keontae Johnson releasing a video on Twitter and has, in fact, been released from the hospital just 10 days after his collapse on the court between the Gators and the Florida State Seminoles. With that now, folks, we'll wrap things up on this Tuesday in our final Tuesday show for the night shift and go into tonight's final thoughts. Time to wrap things up here, folks, on this Tuesday. As a reminder, everybody, this is our final Tuesday episode of the night shift. As we mentioned, folks, at the top of the program here tonight. But we are, again, going to a reshuffled lineup for you folks beginning on January 4th, where, as you see on screen, but for those of you listening on the podcast via Anchor or the podcast app, Wild Sports Talk every Monday and Wednesday still at 7:30 p.m. The Sports Lounge with Callan McClurg, yours truly, will be a 2-hour program every Tuesday from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Pacific time. John Allcorn, our man joining us here tonight, filling in for Isaiah Leung, will have his own one-man show at 9:30 Pacific time every Thursday. No BS every Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then a doubleheader of action on Saturday, Fan Response with Ryan, John, and Shareable Steve at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Then the night shift will be every Saturday and Sunday night at 10 o'clock in the evening to wrap things up for the day of programming that will, again, folks, take effect starting on January 4th of next year. With that, John, final thoughts for the night's program are what?
Enjoy the holidays with your friends and people. Like I said, I wouldn't be here at almost a little after 1 o'clock in the morning, getting to say my thoughts because it sounds like I'm whatever all over the place. Wouldn't be on the sports network or being here at 1 o'clock in the morning just for just anybody. Sports means a lot, but ladies and gentlemen, we can learn a lot about life in sports. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned in the next couple months on Fan Response. And we do got some big guests, as Callan knows, crossing our fingers, but it's going to be really good. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned in.
Believe me, folks, we have a lot of great things coming up, especially tomorrow on Wednesday, folks. The MI6 Sports Network's Christmas special will take the air at 8 o'clock Pacific time to close down our programming for the rest of the week, as we'll be off starting on Christmas Eve, Thursday through Sunday, and then come back for a couple of days of programming before we, in fact, get back to work following the Christmas and the New Year holiday as well. But again, everyone, the MI6 Sports Network's Christmas special will take the air tomorrow at 8 o'clock Pacific time, again, with the entire cast and crew of the MI6 Sports Network, sharing some sports thoughts, but also, again, ringing in the Christmas holiday coming up on Friday, with tomorrow being our final program on Wednesday, our final show up until we head to our Christmas time vacation and Christmas time break. With that, though, folks, the poll results have officially gone final in the 31 Days of Hot Takes Challenge. We asked you folks again to vote for either Ryan Schreiner and his draft day reaction to the Cavs not picking who he wanted against John Mathis, being very angry at the Dodgers for not hitting with guys in scoring position. Ryan Schreiner moves on by a final vote of 2-1 to move on to the next round of the MI6 31 Days of Hot Takes Challenge. We'll have our final second round matchup for you folks on the Christmas special tomorrow before we have the polls running for you over on Twitter over the Christmas break following the program on Wednesday. With that, though, folks, for John Allcorn, Isaiah Leung, and for the entire cast and crew here of the MI6 Sports Network, yours truly, Callan McClurg, saying goodnight on this Tuesday. We'll see you folks one more time before we go to Christmas break Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Pacific time for the network's Christmas special coming your way at 8 p.m. Pacific time back here on the MI6 Sports Network, folks. Till next time, have a good rest of your night. Take care. Please stay safe and stay healthy. And so long. Sayonara. Farewell. We are out of here, folks. Good night. Bye-bye.